Hi everybody, I hope that you're all relatively okay at this stage of the semester. Um, this is just the final presentation, just before you hand up the kind of final iteration of your e-learning project, maybe just to kind of raise a couple of points to your attention, and just a few final things to maybe consider before you hand up your project and before the semester ends. So one of the first things is to maybe just take a bit of time, if you can, to reflect and to think about your design decisions. So if you can get a chance to maybe reread the brief and the material that's on Canvas, to take a look at your project proposal, what we've suggested, what we've given to as feedback, maybe just, if you get a chance, kind of have a read of all of that and maybe try and identify if you're missing any of the elements. So the important thing here really, I guess, is to maybe try and keep an eye out for what you might be missing at this stage. That's not to say you absolutely have to do everything that we told you to do or kind of implement every bit of feedback that we've given you, but this is maybe a good stage to just maybe take a look at what you set out to do, the kind of information that we gave you, and if you can identify something that's missing and kind of fill that gap, great. If you can't fill the gap, then at least you'll be aware of it and you'll be able to give us an explanation in your report for what you were and were not able to do and why you were or weren't able to do that. One big thing, if you get a chance, is to maybe check the rubric and to be strategic with your remaining time and resources. So if you're able to take a look at the rubric, this is how we allocate the marks according to the different kind of criteria available there. I would say maybe don't take the kind of text in the kind of different cells absolutely verbatim. The main thing really is the kind of criteria that are listed and the kind of general kind of the overall kind of broader elements that are kind of down in the rubric. And as much as possible, try and make sure that your solution is meeting all of the requirements there. And based on the rubric and what you think you may or may not have implemented as well or as badly as you'd like, maybe have a think about the remaining time available to you, the remaining resources like your energy levels, your time, your access to material, your access to other people, and be realistic in terms of what's achievable. So at this stage, it's really to try and identify, okay, is there anything major missing? Is there any area where I think I could do with a big improvement? And trying to kind of identify what you can do in the time remaining. And your energy levels at this stage, obviously, and your mental health is are kind of resources that you maybe need to be realistic about. And so this is really just to try and maybe spend the remaining energy you have as wisely as possible. I would say maybe don't be afraid to cut stuff out if you need to. If you find that kind of the stuff in your project which could genuinely be listed as non-essential, and if that's taking up a lot of time and energy, try and kind of don't be afraid to cut those out. We talked before about a minimum viable product. I suppose this is a version of that minimum viable product. It's the kind of best possible minimal viable product that you can produce. And I suppose you've probably spent so long with it, you've grappled so much with it. It can be very easy at this stage to get overwhelmed and to kind of feel that kind of, okay, well, I have to get these additional 10 pages of content into the project solution. So, don't be afraid to cut stuff out at this stage if it's not essential, if it's not adding a huge amount in terms of quality to your project. And it's something we mentioned before. You're much better off with a shorter, very polished, very effective, very professional solution than kind of a longer solution which is kind of incomplete or kind of isn't as well put together as it could be. Think about the logistics of us accessing your solution, what is really critical for us, and it sounds like an obvious thing, but you'd be surprised how many projects in previous years we've gotten that we can't actually get at. Make sure that we can get at what we need to review your work. So, where is it going to be accessed? Where is it going to be hosted? Do we need to have a username and a password? Will we need any additional plugins or software to be able to access it? All of these kind of things. And this is kind of, I suppose, important for all users, but at this stage of the project, it's really important that Shane, Brian and myself can get at your material. And one thing which has arisen in the past previously is if you're hosting your work on an intranet, sometimes there may be additional steps needed for us to get access to it. So try to maybe, if that is going to be a problem, try to kind of get on top of those as soon as possible, because all of the advice kind of pales in comparison to the importance of us being able to actually get at the material. And it's happened in previous years where people hand up excellent projects, but we can't get at them. And if we can't then contact the people, the students involved, we really can't kind of, get at the material to give them marks. So a useful way of doing this is if you have any people that kind of are not working in the company where you're working, that are kind of unrelated to e-learning, just to maybe try and give them access to your solution wherever it's hosted, and see if anything arises for them in terms of technical difficulties or access issues. Another big thing as well is to remember the report. So if you look at the brief on Canvas, there is an 800-word report that has to be uploaded along with your the link to your e-learning project. Now we say 800 words. It's not a very hard 800 words. So you're not going to be penalized if you go under it. You're not going to be penalized much if you go over it. But the report is important, and the report is really to tell us the story of your project development. So it's an opportunity. You can think of the report as it's tempting to just say, I did this and I did this and I did this and here it is. Maybe think about the report as a good opportunity to give us context for the solution you're handing up. So it's an opportunity for you to explain all the design decisions that you made. So for example, if we're looking at your work and we go, I'm not sure about that, the report is a good place to kind of say, I did this particular part this way for these reasons. It's an opportunity for you to explain why stuff is there and why stuff isn't there. So if you left something out, you can kind of give us an indication of why it's been left out. You can provide context and information on the learners, on the learning needs, so that we have a good idea of who this is for, and based on that, I suppose, to include in the report why this solution in particular is meeting those needs. And also to highlight any issues you'd encounter, to provide information on further development and future plans. Both of those are things that we do like to see, and so I'd encourage you to try and include those if you can. And if you get a chance as well to maybe very, very briefly give us an idea of the feedback you got from learners. Now, obviously that will much more so go into the thesis, but it's useful for us to maybe try and get a bit of an idea of how it was received, and you could tie that into future development or kind of future plans for your solutions as well. And if you get a chance, just on a piece of paper or even on a post-it note, maybe just try and make a final checklist for yourself. So critical elements here is it up? Is it available to Shane and Brian and myself? Also, it's important to make sure that it will remain available over the next couple of weeks, so that we'll definitely be able to get access to it, so that kind of we'll be able to to kind of get at it to give you marks. Have I given people the access details needed, like usernames and passwords? Have I remembered to include the report? And with all of this, I guess, remember that kind of our experience will not be your experience. So, it is important to kind of give us everything that we need to kind of, firstly, to get to access the e-learning solution, to have an idea of where it's coming from, who it's for, what kind of happened with it, and all of that can kind of be included in the report. So that's it really. I suppose that final checklist is maybe just for your own sake, just to have that as kind of, okay, what are the things that I absolutely need to do to finish this module, and to give kind of Shane, Brian and myself everything that we need to hopefully give you as many marks as possible. And if you can just make out that checklist and then just tick those off as you kind of hand it all up. So that's it. Look, the very best of luck with it. It has been a pleasure for us to kind of teach you and to see your projects come along over the past kind of semester, and we look forward to seeing the kind of final version. So we'll talk to you again, but best of luck with the remaining few days, everyone.